Welcome to Rock Your Talk. I'm Leisa Reid. We have our expert interview series, and I'm excited for our guest today, Ken Bator. And I'm going to hear more about Ken in just a moment. Hi, Ken. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Good. Thanks for having me, Lisa.
You're welcome. And I'm Leisa Reid. Like I said, I'm the founder of Get Speaking Gigs Now, where I help speakers learn how to get booked, stay booked, monetize their message so they can attract the clients that they love to work with. But I'm also the proud facilitator and speaker for Productive Learning. And Productive Learning is a personal development company. We specialize in self-mastery, and we help all kinds of people from all different levels of business, or maybe you don't even have your own business, but you're just wondering how can you really tap into that potential that you know that you have, and you're just sort of spinning around and you're not really sure what questions to ask yourself to get there. So we have all kinds of great tools and strategies and workshops to help people get to their next level. And I love bringing you experts in different areas. And Ken is someone I've known for a few years. He is an expert on helping businesses in all different matters, culture and branding and things like that. But Ken, tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, well, I don't know if we have that kind of time.
He's also a stand-up
yeah, I have actually tried that with actually a little success, but that's a whole nother show. No, I've been running Bator Training and Consulting since 2001. I started that on 9/11/01. What a great day to start a business.
Wow.
That is a whole story in itself, but I concentrate on developing the brand, culture, and strategy for service-based businesses. And service-based businesses are those that where the experience is as or more important than the actual products, such as banks, restaurants, gyms, credit unions, places such as that, where you can go anywhere for the service, but you keep going back to them because of the experience that you have.
Oh, I love that. And I did not know that you started your business on 9/11. Wow, we'll have to have you back so we can hear that story, because that must have been an interesting time.
Wow. It was an interesting morning, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow. And I know Ken and I met through a group that I run called the OC Speakers Network. So not only is Ken this great consultant, he's also a speaker, and which is kind of cool, because today you're taking a little bit of a diversion, but in a good way, because you have a lot of expertise. You're going to teach us about how to deliver better presentations online, right? Which I think a lot of people are doing right now. Yes.
Well, yeah, whether you want to or not, that's kind of what you're forced to do. And it ties into brand and strategy as it is anyway, because if you're a speaker, how you approach that, number one, takes a strategy beforehand, and number two is a reflection of your brand. But what I've found is that my approach to speaking in person has applied very well to speaking online over the last few months.
Yeah.
And those three tips go back to what I have been saying for years, which is as a speaker, my approach, which has worked, has been to entertain first, engage second, and educate third. And a very, very brief backstory, having been a speaker for a couple of decades, for many years, I did okay, but I struggled a little bit because I always looked at educating first. I always came with the mindset of, these people are paying, they're either paying me to be a speaker at this conference, or they're paying me to do this training at an individual business, or what have you. I need to educate and give as much training as I possibly can. Now, that thought came from a good place. It was a good intention, but it didn't always work well. You've got those people, looking at their phone or looking at their notebook, or wondering, how they can get out of here and do something else other than listening to this bald guy. And it was literally
part of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
He's doing it right now.
Well, and it was like, I'm sure for my audience, it was like trying to take a small drink out of a fire hose.
Yeah.
And I could see that I was losing people, and I had to keep bringing them back, and it was very frustrating for me. And then it dawned on me one day is that, you know what, these people are here to be entertained. If it's a business where there are employees that are forced to being in a training session, many of them don't want to be there. Let's entertain them first before we give them any education. Let's engage them. And again, a little bit of backstory. For a number of years, I refused to do webinars because I found them so boring. But, I found over the last few months in being forced to do more online presentations, more online speaking, because that's what we're doing during the pandemic, and that very well may be our new normal, that I found that my entertain, engage, and educate formula works very well online if you approach it that way. So, number one, in terms of entertaining, just like I would, or you would, because you're an excellent speaker as well, in person, is you have to grab people right from the start. Some people do that with some kind of a shocking statement, which is fine too. Like, we find that all women between 35 and 40, 80% of them take 15-minute showers instead of 10-minute showers, or something like that, something to grab them. Or don't wash their hair on a regular basis. They only wash their hair once a month, whatever it is. I know that's not true, but I'm trying to get a reaction out of you, and it's not working. But anyhow, this is our non-entertaining portion.
My hair. Oh my gosh.
Well, I wash my hair every day.
A lot, you can tell.
Yeah, well, too much, obviously, because there's none here anymore. But anyhow, so online, I still approach with how do we entertain first, and to give a couple of examples. If, especially on Zoom, which is my platform of choice, but you could do this on WebEx or Skype or whatever, as long as you could see people's faces. If there's somebody in the audience that I know that I can banter with a little bit, I'll start off there. I'll say, hey, and it's great that Steve is joining us again wearing the same flannel shirt that I saw in 1994 when we were doing this back then. If it's somebody that can take it, they'll laugh, will joke. Other people will get the picture that, hey, this isn't going to be somebody just speaking for 60 minutes. He's going to be engaging. He's going to joke around. If I don't have anybody that I know, I don't like to pick on anybody that I meet for the first time.
Yeah. Make sure you really get to know them before you pick on them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I find that if you really look at people's facial expressions, what they're doing, on the video, much as you would in person, you kind of pick up on who you can play with a little bit, and who you kind of need to just let sit there and be quiet and whatever.
With you. Yeah.
Exactly. But if I don't know anybody and I need to, and this is again my formula, I need to entertain right from the start, I'll use some kind of self-deprecating humor. For instance, it's easy to joke about Zoom. And I might start out with, well, since we now have 100 million people on Zoom instead of 1 million, we may go down at any minute. So let's get started.
Sure.
I could see my video still working okay, and it reminds me that I've got a face for radio. So something like that. It's something. It doesn't have to be this huge 30-second joke like I met a man from Nantucket or whatever. Yeah. It could be clean. But if I get people laughing, even if it's on mute, if you have people on the screens, you can see if they've laughed or not, and then you've seen if you've engaged them or not. If you get some laughter, you get some smiles, okay, I got them. And then I go right to engagement, just as I would in person. Yeah. I would say, oh, you know what? I see Lisa smiling over there. I got to somebody over there, or I got through to somebody today. Or I may start my presentation and see a reaction from somebody. And I may say, Josh, I see that, you kind of raised your eyebrow over there. What do you think of that? Am I way off base for your business, or does that make sense? and then unmute them and give them the floor. That engagement is so important before educating, because if you go right to education, you don't have their attention. And then I go to educate, and what I try to do, especially online, because I think in person you could give people more information, because they're there, they're engaged, you're walking around, you can do some things that you can't do online. But online, I try to keep it very, very focused. In particular, I focus on giving people at least one tip that I know that they're going to be able to take away from this online session and implement right away. Now, there may be some other educational points that I offer during that time together, but I always make a special point. Yeah, here's the number one tip that I want you to take from this and implement right after we end this session. And it's always something simple that I know that they're going to be able to take with them, because at the end of the day, they're going to remember how they felt, if they had any fun, and they're going to remember, did they get something of value? And if you focus on giving them at least one really important implementable, easy for me to say, educational tip, they're going to remember that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, cool. So we've got entertain, engage, and then educate. And it
Yes,
sounds
the
like
3 E's.
Yeah. And so I know there's a lot of people like you're naturally funny, as I am very funny.
You are extremely
I
funny.
know, but not and humble, but not everyone has that like funny quality or gene. Like it just, comes easier to other people.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're raised and like both of my parents are very humorous, and, so I was raised in that, learn from the best. What do you recommend or I don't know if you have a recommendation, but just it occurred to me, like, what do you say if someone is like, I don't think I'm that funny, like, how would I entertain them? Do you have any other ideas? And I know
I
this isn't
always have
yours.
an idea or two, Lisa.
I totally put you on the spot on that one, but
Not at all, actually. It's right up my alley. I do a lot of work with disc personality profiles and so forth. And you're right. Some people, aren't naturally funny, or they're funny sometimes, and that's not their number one way of communicating. My suggestion is, if you truly are not funny, and by the way, you probably are funnier than you give yourself credit for out there if you think that you're not. But if humor is not one of your natural talents, then my suggestion is you could still entertain with stories, with quotes, with specific data. For instance, if you're doing a talk on change or change management, you might want to open up with something like, do you know that 8 out of 9 people that are faced with a possible fatal disease, but could change their habits and turn that around immediately, won't actually change those habits?
wow.
And take a pause.
Yeah.
Now, that's still entertaining,
Right.
because like, wow, I never really thought of it that way. And you take that pause, and it makes people think. Now you've entertained, and you're able to engage them and say, what do you think about that? Julie, if you were faced with a life-threatening disease and you had a chance to change it, what do you think you would do?
Mm-hmm.
Now you've entertained without any humor, because humor and entertainment are not synonyms.
Right.
Humor is one way to entertain. There are some people, in fact, there's one colleague of mine, I'll give him a shout out, Jim McCabe from Vero. He sells identity theft solutions to businesses, does a very good job, has a great business, but has a tendency to lead with facts that are fearful.
Right.
He may lead with, something to the effect of, do you know, X number of businesses have had a data breach in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
And here are some of them. Yeah, and what that does, I personally don't like to lead with fear, but it is one that does entertain and engage, because you're giving people data, and you have an opportunity to ask them, how do you feel about that?
Sure.
Do you think your business could be next? So yes, there are ways to do that. There are certainly ways to start with entertaining, even without humor.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, and I agree. And so very good point. And then I was going to also mention, I know you like this isn't your main thing that you help people with in how they deliver their message, but tell people about how they could get a hold of you, or if really what's the bulk of your regular business that you do.
Sure. Sure. The best way to get a hold of me is just simply to go to my website. It's www.btcinc.net. There's a free ebook right in the upper right hand corner if you want to learn more about brand, culture, and strategy alignment. And also there's links to my website, to all my social media. I'm very active on LinkedIn. There's links to my email and phone number and all that other fun stuff. So even if you're a speaker, or better yet, if you're a business, like a wellness business or a financial business that could benefit from speaking as part of your brand strategy, that's certainly something that I can help with.
Wonderful. And then what are some of the benefits you say? And I know you mentioned like you have companies that you help who are like banks or gyms or different things like that. What do you think are some of the biggest benefits they get from engaging with you as their consultant?
Focus. Yeah, simply put, focus. I like to say that I'm an airplane view guy. And a lot of business owners and executives have a tendency to play in the weeds or somewhere in the helicopter view, which I completely understand, especially today. You got stuff to do and problems to fix. But many times, looking at that airplane view helps you to solve those problems in the weeds. So whether it's a small engagement or a long-term, regular private client engagement, I guarantee you that you're going to get focus from at least one conversation with me.
Wonderful. Yeah, because I think that's especially hard for sometimes when you're in your own business, especially if you're running it, you're working in it. It is hard to rise above and look at it from a longer term point of view or the bigger picture point of view, because you're just so inundated with what you have in front of you. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that metaphor of really being able to look
Well,
ahead.
I'll even give you an analogy, because I work with consultants, mentors, and so forth on my business, because even though I'm very good at branding and even very good at writing, I find that I need that second set of eyes because I'm too close to it. I'm too emotional.
Yep.
And for many years, I always thought of the analogy of, oh, okay, I'm a great consultant. It's much like being a skilled mechanic. If my car breaks down, I'll just go out and fix it. But I found over time that that's a very poor analogy. That the right analogy is I may be a very, very skilled brain surgeon, but if I've got a small tumor, it's probably not a good idea if I do surgery on myself.
Not recommended. No. Yeah, that's a really, really good analogy. Having that outside perspective can help us see what the possibilities that we maybe have already put aside, or like, oh, I already tried that, like, or doubted, or just you can exponentially grow when you bring in that other perspective outside of whatever thinking you already have. And that really would go for anybody, right? It's like, wow, how long have you been stuck? Okay. How long have you been trying the same thing? And then how long do you've been like, okay, we need to do something, but we haven't done it yet. Okay, now's the time to make a decision, really, of like, okay, now I'm ready to bring in somebody else to help me with my business, whether that's coaching, consulting, like at Productive Learning, we have more for like the development of a leader. If you have X amount of employees and you're leading an organization, again, it can be lonely at the top, and having someone to be able to, which is what we provide, like this environment where leaders can, in a small trusted group, challenge and support and push to help you really rise up to something that you never even thought you could do. And especially as you get higher on the food chain, there's less people that you can confide in, right? They can't necessarily go to your employees and say, I'm really working on this thing and I don't know how to, fire you or let you, or, make these structural changes. And, you can't, you have less people that you can really work through those pieces. So it's good to have that trusted consultant or to help you with the operations and the whole picture, or more it's like at Productive Learning where it's more like, okay, internally, how do I shift what's going on here so that I can have these other external results, which is a very powerful conversation.
What you say is so key, whether it's Productive Learning, Bator Training and Consulting, or some other firm. Ironically, this year, I'm blessed to have a little bit of an uptick in business.
Ooh, yeah.
Obviously, I'm not doing much, if any, business with all of my restaurant clients, and that's unfortunate. And I understand it, and I really support our restaurant owners out there. But I find that in the financial industry, my business is growing because many of my clients, and I've pitched myself to them, many of them like this, is think of me as an executive vice president that you don't have to pay a six-figure salary to in benefits.
Right.
And a lot of those CEOs, especially now, are scheduling, these 1-hour calls or video meetings with me, if nothing else, just to say, I got this going on. And I've gotta look confident to my management staff, and I can't go and whine to my board of directors because they'll say this is what we paid you for emergencies like this. But they could cry and whine, and we could talk about strategies and talk about even other people and how much problems they're given during this time, and it's just between us, and leaders can get that kind of guidance in a very safe environment.
That's so important. I love that you're offering that for people, and that I think it's important that business leaders know that there's opportunities, there's choices out there to really rise up and not have to keep it all inside and try to figure it out on your own, because I think that's a myth. So like all of a sudden you're a business owner and you're supposed to know everything and have all the answers and be, cool as a cucumber. And it's like, wow, especially times right now, it's not always easy to be that way. Even before, there's still challenges, but now that we're, with shelter in place, there's a lot of things that are changing. So I just thank you for being on our show today. And again, tell us the website. What's the website? btcinc.com?
Yep. btcinc.net, actually. You almost nailed it. You got close. .net, yes.
Okay.
B as in boy, T as in Tom, C as in cat, Inc. like incorporated .net. And if you can't find me there, type in my name in Google or LinkedIn, and if I don't come up, frankly, you're not looking that hard because I'm everywhere.
He's easy to find. If you want to find Ken Bator, you can find him. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for being on our show. And for all of you out there listening, remember to be kind to yourself and definitely be kind to somebody else today, okay? Until next time, we will see you on the next episode.